Pat Nixon has been called one of the most enigmatic first ladies of the 20th century. Was she the perfect mother and homemaker her public image portrayed? Did she put aside her own desires to help her husband's career? Or was she a woman in charge of her own destiny? Complicated, determined, fiercely protective, and nobody's fool, Patricia Nixon never expected anything to be handed to her. As the daughter of a poor Irish miner, she was always expected to work hard without complaint. In 1924, when her mother died of cancer, she took on all the household duties for her father and two brothers. She was just 12 years old. In 1929, she attended Fullerton College and paid for her schooling herself by working multiple jobs. She went on to earn her bachelor's degree and teaching certificate from the University of Southern California. While at USC, the future First Lady made a big impression. As a former professor remarked, she stood out from the empty-headed, overdressed little sorority girls of that era like a good piece of literature on a shelf of cheap paperbacks. While attending college, Pat met the man who would eventually become her husband and the 37th President of the United States. Both were hard workers, ambitious, and shared a desire to travel and see the world. Although a life in politics would not have been Pat's first choice, she nevertheless became a huge asset to Richard Nixon and campaigned with him throughout his climb from congressman to senator to vice president and then president.
And will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend.
During her time in the White House, she earned the distinction as the most traveled First Lady in history, a record that remained intact for 25 years.
So help me God.
And on a trip to Africa in 1971, Pat became the official representative of the United States government. It was the first time in history that a First Lady had acted in such a capacity, and a distinction that was not to be duplicated until the Clinton administration. Far from being the passive wife some detractors saw her as, Pat's extraordinary role in her husband's administration caused one journalist to dub her a stealth feminist. Pat Nixon became one of the top 10 most admired women in the nation, according to the Gallup organization, an honor she won 14 times. Even after she and her husband left the White House under a cloud, Pat continued to make the list for another 5 years. After she and her husband returned to California and private life, Pat, for the most part, stayed out of the public eye. Their years in politics, and especially the bruising Watergate scandal that ended the Nixon presidency, left the couple emotionally and physically drained. Engulfed as she was by the Watergate scandal, she nevertheless refused to be defined by it. In reality, she expanded the role of First Lady as no one before her had done. And her ability to persevere in the face of enormous adversity paints the true portrait of an extraordinary woman.